J. Robert Oppenheimer was an infamous theoretical physicist. While his intellect and curiosity naturally propelled him forward in school, it was science that always remained his favorite. I've obviously never talked to him, but I can only imagine how enamored he was by the natural world, how beautiful science could be. This love turned into something of an obsession, however, as once he became completely involved with experimental physics while in university, he would regularly skip meals as he was consumed by his work, and is even quoted as once saying, "I need physics more than friends." Science was so much his priority that he hadn't even realized the stock market crash of 1929 happened until 6 months later. But while some could question his sanity, no one could question his love. His singular goal in life seemed to be to uncover this beautiful world around him. That would change, however, as Oppenheimer became increasingly involved in politics. He could no longer separate the two as he felt he had a larger calling to heed to, especially as the world headed to war. Although that love for science would never cease, it would become tainted. On August 6, 1945, the world's first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, followed by a second attack on Nagasaki a few days later. The resulting aftermath left upwards of 250,000 innocent civilians dead. And it was Oppenheimer, in his pursuit of science, who had led the project for its creation. His curiosity led to the death of countless children. Something that was once so curious, so beautiful, it followed a seemingly inevitable route. It was used for war. And in Oppenheimer's final years, perhaps his response to his own regret, he hammered home one point again and again. You cannot manage the power of knowledge in a world in which the freedom of science is shackled by political concern. When Jayce was a child, he saw magic, and words can't even begin to describe how absolutely beautiful it was. It even saved his life. Ever since that fateful moment, Jayce has made it his life's mission to replicate that magic with the power of science, to save lives. Yet, what a young Jayce hadn't yet realized is that the history of science is the history of war. And in his pursuit, he follows the same path as Oppenheimer. Politics led to the beauty he once saw being turned into a weapon. Instead of saving lives, Jayce kills a child. But let's rewind a bit, because the path that he takes to reach this inevitable conclusion is easily the most interesting arc in the entirety of Arcane. After Jayce was saved by magic, he dedicated his life to harnessing that power to save others. And as far-fetched of a dream as that was, he actually manages to achieve it. The way Heimerdinger describes the impact of the Hex Gates in episode 4, it doesn't sound dissimilar to the Renaissance, where expeditions and written words spreading throughout the world led to a surge in the arts and sciences, with cultures being able to influence each other much greater than before. In this way, Piltover and the Day of Progress truly is like that infamous World's Fair, unveiling the Eiffel Tower as both a beacon of communication and a beacon of the very future of technological advancement. But progress isn't free. It isn't even cheap. As any tweet with over 50,000 likes will tell you, if you make a good product, greedy corporations are going to try to manipulate you, and probably get you to sell something, or like 20 things. While Jayce and Victor's eyes light up as they look at their new tools, a pair of gauntlets and a laser beam, knowing that they can help people, others' eyes light up at the prospect of a profit. And no character better embodies this principle than Mel. Now, while I do like Mel as a character, and she has some redemption later on, she undeniably manipulates Jayce. When she looks at the current council, she sees nothing but an archaic form of governing. It needs change. And when she spots the young, bright inventor, she bets everything in his stock. And, well, she's certainly not wrong about the council. While initially depicted as the usual lazy people in power, Arcane realizes that politicians are far from lazy, but just that they have a personal stake in so many different ventures that they will oppose virtually any policy that would disrupt that money flow. The problem is that doing that, basically anything would disrupt that, so literally nothing happens. Mel does what no person should ever do: get a scientist involved with politics. Even after getting Jayce in the council, a position he begins to take very seriously, as security concerns with the Hex Gates become rampant, she takes it even further. She makes Jayce go corporate. The theater performance is a turning point for the young inventor. No longer is science his main priority, but the politics that surround it. Basically, he has to get people to agree with him, so he unveils his revolutionary, society-shifting, life-saving new idea: Hexed Egg Partners. And as he goes around smiling, laughing, shaking hands, Mel watches intently as he puts on the performance of his life. His audience awaits. But these waters are not stable. They are turbulent, unpredictable, and as we shall soon see, they're waiting to consume. Now, before I continue, just know that you are allowed to disagree with me here. I'm 22 years old, and I can't possibly fully grasp such complex situations like these. If you do disagree, just listen to the end, leave a comment, and let's start a dialogue. I also understand that this is a very sensitive topic, and I will try my best to handle it with the nuance and respect it deserves. However, if you feel uncomfortable with discussions on terrorism, then you should probably click off this video. Now, with that out of the way, first world countries such as America are partly responsible for terrorist attacks around the globe. To be quite honest, even though the terrorist attacks I'm referencing usually have these nations as the victims, they are probably mostly responsible for them. Let me explain. Islamic beliefs, and that has 4 quotations on each side of that word, have been the scapegoat for acts of terrorism for decades now. And if you believe that Islam is actually the core behind terrorism perpetrated by the Middle East, I understand, but you're wrong. While I don't know much about the religion, I know that it doesn't preach what it's being accused of. To better explain, let's take a look at the 3rd greatest anime ever made, Eureka 7. In one of the show's best episodes, we see Renton travel to a city that has recently suffered a terrorist attack, where the government has scapegoated a religious group clearly meant to be a stand-in for Islamic people. A family in this group is denied hospital equipment that would save their daughter's life, even though they've done nothing wrong. In response, Renton, not understanding how shitty the world is yet, takes the unconscious girl to a neighboring hospital, demanding she be saved. And the people in the waiting room, the way they respond, well, you can see the hatred in their eyes as they look at the girl. She did nothing wrong, but they despise her. And I get it. I really do. Because the government has told these people that this group is responsible for the death of their loved ones, their children, even though it was that same shitty government that caused these problems in the first place. In their broken minds, I can't blame them for their hatred. But that's the greater point here. We can't just expect people to repress their emotions and act rationally in these situations. They're going to hate that person or people that killed their loved ones. Especially as children see their parents fucking burning alive right in front of them, or their friends or siblings, aunts or uncles. They are going to despise the perpetrator. Anyone would. Just as the people in the hospital can't forgive the girl, children around the globe can't forgive nations that firebomb their neighborhoods. The perpetrator is, of course, countries like America, who just absolutely bombed the living shit out of the Middle East, especially under Reagan in the 80s. And those attacks have severe consequences, although they usually take a few decades to surface, as the children that survived those attacks, now without a family, have grown up, and probably only have one thought in their minds: hatred for America and murderous intent. And so it becomes a battle of retaliation versus retaliation, as no side wins. I'm not trying to justify terrorism. It's inherently evil in that it kills innocent civilians. But then we have to say the same thing about what America and other countries do. It's all evil. And if you can look me in the eyes, like seriously stare into my soul here, and tell me that you would forgive the person who killed the person you love the most in this world, then okay. Go ahead and click off the video. Blame religion. But I'm guessing you can't do that. Very few, if any, could. It's honestly just a horrible situation fueled by greed, hate, and, scarily enough, love. If you want to blame religion for anything, just view it as a unifying force, because terrorists are undeniably united under such banners. But, well, that isn't actually Islam, like, at all. Furthermore, the only reason that these people are able to become indoctrinated in the first place is because they are inherently broken. The reason of which being the violent and exploited environments they grew up in, which are only like that because of the destabilization that comes with first world nations meddling in literally all their political affairs. Or, you know, just dropping bombs on them. So if you have to point at someone, blame the greediness of the leaders of these groups, like Bin Laden or Soko, that do the indoctrinating as the cult leaders that they are, as well as the powerful nations that hurt these people in the first place. It's difficult to even determine where it all started, who shot the first bullet. But, well, I'll blame the country that has all the power. Without them, I genuinely believe that large-scale acts of terrorism that one commonly associates with the Middle East would cease to exist. Seriously. Because without love being broken, hate would never be born, and violence wouldn't come to be. But hey, this is a video about Arcane, so let's see how this all actually applies to the show. And spoiler alert, it's almost a one-to-one comparison. Jayce's story follows the side of the first world nation, the one in power, while Jinx's follows the side of the terrorist. But don't worry, we'll be getting to her soon. Once he becomes a member of the council, the issue of the gemstone being stolen is brought to the forefront. A stone that has the potential to be used to power weapons, ones of which the world has rarely seen before. This power has supposedly fallen into the wrong hands, but while we as the audience know that to be true, the council can't actually be certain of that. And yet, even this early in Jayce's character development, he makes it absolutely clear that they must get it back, and that the underground is to be feared. I don't think I have to spell out the parallels here. Alleged weapons of mass destruction, well, we all know that was the reason the US gave in its invasion of Iraq in 2003. And while the complexity between these two situations is vastly different, as we know that they really only want the gemstone back, it's interesting to note that in both times, it was someone more or less heavily supported by the nation that is invading. Saddam for Iraq and Soko for Zon. What really matters here, though, is that it shows how both sides will fight so bitterly over control of science. Science that can be turned into a weapon. It's a tale as old as time. Furthermore, while Jayce even goes as far as to basically usurp Heimerdinger just to protect the people, you can't really say the same about the other counselors, who are much more interested in their own individual financial endeavors. So much so that they haven't even realized Marcus's treachery. In this sense, they are quite similar to the US or any other major colonizer. Searching every person who crosses the bridge is only the beginning, though, as we see Jayce start to lose it. He's paranoid, scared. Everyone down there is out to destroy the city. Of course they are. He can't let them in. He needs to shut them out. Blockade the bridge. If these people, these terrorists, were allowed in the city, they would kill everybody. They're dangerous.
They're dangerous. I'm from the Undercity.
But they just keep trying to break in. As the world becomes increasingly aware of Piltover's inability to deal with the underground, we as the audience can see Jayce becoming more and more unstable. He doesn't know what to do, making him even more receptive to manipulation by individuals like Mel. She convinces him that they must repurpose Hex Tech to build weapons, simply to defend the city, of course. But as we see Jayce slowly agreeing, it becomes clear that this technology that was built to save lives and harness the beauty of magic, that it would soon take them. It would kill people. But no, there can't be any harm in it, right? It's just to protect the people. They'll probably never even need to use it. The other side is building up weapons, so what can be so wrong with our side doing the same? And the sad reality is, I can't blame him for having these thoughts. This paranoia. I could never imagine what I would do in that situation. But what I do know is that whether it be magically powered weapons or nuclear warheads, the cycle of escalation will keep rearing its ugly head. And the cost is death. Of people. Of innocence.
I'm worried I have to do something I never thought I would.
That image is no longer visible. That wonderment of magic is no longer there.
Jayce, you don't know war. I do.
No, he doesn't. What he now knows is the sight of those soldiers slaughtered on the bridge. He doesn't understand that such barricades perhaps only provoke more retaliation. No, instead, it just makes him sick. It makes him even more vulnerable. Right in time for Mel's mother to arrive in Piltover from Noxus. She speaks of Hextech as if it were already a weapon, as if the decision had been made. Perhaps it has. But then holy shit, they redeemed Mel as a character? They actually did it this episode? They finally made it clear what drives her, showing her humanity, making her into a person. It's great. But the further reaching implications of her mother-son introduction are simply the definition of interesting, once again drawing on real-world parallels. Proxy wars are perhaps one of humanity's evilest inventions, making unrelated nations fight your battles. Her attitude towards this conflict in the city is similar, but why? Why the sudden interest? To test weaponry. To make sure that Hextech becomes a weapon so that she can utilize it to advance her own nation's armaments. People will die. That matters little. When I see this and then think of the countless proxy wars fought in the real world for similar reasons, I am starkly reminded of how inherently disgusting humanity is. Not even just how cruel we can be, but perhaps worse, just how fucking efficient we are. Beings without souls. And once again, this attitude reaches Jayce. He shows visible frustration as the council talks about peaceful solutions, saying all they ever do is talk in circles. He's sick of it. But Mel, she knows war. She knows it must be the last resort. Unfortunately, someone else is in the room. Someone who knows only her own black and white view of evil, all guided by her absolute hatred of Soko. The only answer she has ever been shown from Piltover to her own community is violence. Vi. And she won't let it end with peace. So after boldly stating,
No in. You heard the council.
Fuck the council.
she extends out her hand. Taking that hand will mean betraying the council, betraying his beautiful dream. He stands on top of a mountain in this room with two paths in sight. We see the story thus far in his eyes. From a single boy's pure wish to help people with magic, to actually creating Hextech, to being manipulated over and over as his sanity slowly wanes. Everything comes into focus. Everything weighs on his mind. And then he makes his decision. He takes her hand. He chooses violence. Just as so many leaders before him, so many different nations that preceded him. How Oppenheimer created the atomic nuke. How America bombed the living shit out of the Middle East for decades. How so many powerful countries exploit those colonies under them, and then attack them when finally retaliated against. Just like all of this, Jayce continues the cycle. And the hardest part is that we aren't reading this from some history book. We've seen his entire journey to get here, to this single decision. We are forced to see just how painfully human this path has been. We want so desperately for him to choose peace, but he doesn't. He doesn't. As Jayce blasts away with his hammer, wearing his face in a frustrated and malicious retort, screaming as he kills what he perceives as monsters, we know that he has lost himself completely and utterly. This is the moment where he fully abandons his ideals, when he chooses violence. And let me be clear, despite how much we have talked about Jayce being manipulated, in the end, he made this choice. This is him doing these things, nobody else, even if they also hold responsibility in these actions. And that's what makes it so much more heartbreaking. The tools he built to save the people of the Undercity, he and Vi are now using them to kill those same civilians, to slaughter them. But of course, we know this cycle must complete this rotation. And it does. It fucking does. Jayce has killed a child with his own 2 hands. He can't go back. The cycle begins again, over and over. It just keeps on repeating. This clip is part of a much larger Arcane analysis video. If you would like to see me talk about Oppenheimer specifically as a movie, please leave a comment. Now, without further ado, here's a clip from my short film on YouTube, my horror short film, Squid Boy.
Why don't you love us? How do you feel?
I feel sometimes. When I do, it's more than enough.
No. You'd actually talk to me.
I am.
And yet you're being all cryptic about it.
Try my best.
Then look me in the eyes.
Why?
See, you shouldn't even have to question something like that.
I know.
I don't think you do know. Honestly. You're trying your best and I appreciate that, I really do. But I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for you to be open with me.
I know. I'm sorry.
You don't need to apologize. I just want to help. You know that, don't you?
I do.
Then talk to me.
It's hard to explain.
I got all the time in the world.
When I see people I should know very well, it's like I don't even recognize them anymore. Like they're aliens, and I don't know what to do with that.
Okay. I'm listening.
I'm starting to feel like they don't exist. That I don't exist. And I don't know what I should do about it.
See? That's a good start. We can take it little by little. I know it's hard, but you can trust me, okay? I love you so much. And that's not gonna change. Now look at me.
I don't know. I don't know anymore. Yeah. And they disappeared one day.
And, as always, thank you for watching.